Snowflakes drifted silently through the dusky winter air as Mark guided his aging sedan down the quiet street, one hand on the wheel, the other gently clasping his daughter's mittened fingers. The heater hummed, but the world outside was frozen, coated in white. As they slowed at a red light near the bus stop, Mark's gaze caught on a solitary figure. A young woman in uniform stood motionless, her duffel bag beside her, the snow gathering on her shoulders. She was clearly cold, clearly tired, and clearly alone. His daughter leaned forward, her breath fogging the window. "Daddy," she whispered, "why is she all alone?" The question pierced something deep in Mark. He looked again. The soldier's eyes were fixed on the ground, her arms hugged tightly across her chest as if bracing against more than just the weather. No family. No car. No welcome home. Just silence and snow. Mark felt a tug, more than just the one from his daughter's hand. It was a pull from somewhere unspoken. He thought of the empty seat at their own dinner table. Of the holidays that didn't feel quite right since his wife passed. He glanced at his daughter, then at the soldier. A memory flashed, a young woman standing alone at another bus stop, years ago, who had once trusted him enough to build a life together. Without fully understanding why, he eased the car closer to the curb. Something in him couldn't just drive away. Mark lowered the window, letting in a gust of cold air. The soldier turned, surprised, her eyes wary but polite. She stood a little straighter, as if bracing for a stranger's awkward gratitude or a passing honk. Instead, Mark offered something far more unexpected. "You look like you could use a warm place," he said gently. "Come with us." The words hung in the air for a moment. The soldier blinked, unsure if she'd heard him right. Her voice was quiet, almost defensive. "I'm fine. Just waiting for the next bus." Mark shook his head, his tone kind but firm. "No one should be standing out here alone in this weather. Especially not someone who's just come home." His daughter pressed her face to the window and waved. "Hi." The soldier's face softened, but she hesitated, her grip tightening on the duffel. "I don't want to intrude." "You wouldn't be," Mark said. "We've got a spare room. And some leftover lasagna. It's not fancy, but it's warm." Emma studied his face. There was no pity there, just sincerity. And something about the way his little girl smiled made it harder to say no. After a long pause, she gave a quiet nod. "Okay, just for a little while." Mark got out, took her bag without asking, and opened the back door. Emma climbed in, the warmth of the car wrapping around her like a blanket. She didn't know it yet, but this ride was the beginning of something she hadn't felt in a long time: home. The house smelled like garlic and warmth, the kind of scent that wrapped around you and made you forget the cold. Mark handed Emma a plate of reheated lasagna while his daughter eagerly chatted about her day at school. The soldier sat at the edge of the kitchen table, still in uniform, her posture stiff, as if unsure she was allowed to relax. Mark noticed. "You can take off the boots," he said with a small smile. "No one's inspecting you here." Emma chuckled under her breath, then slowly untied them, one by one. "Force of habit," she murmured. The meal was simple, but the atmosphere was more nourishing than the food. Between bites, Emma started to open up. Not much at first, just scattered details. She'd just flown in that morning. No family nearby. Her last base was overseas. She was planning to stay in a motel for a few days until she figured things out. "You were really just going to take a bus, alone, after everything?" Mark asked. She shrugged. "Happens more than you'd think." The room fell silent for a moment. His daughter, mid-chew, looked up at Emma with wide eyes. "You're a real soldier?" she asked softly. Emma nodded. "Yeah. I guess I am." There was something in her voice, not pride, exactly, but something quieter. Maybe exhaustion. Maybe loss. Maybe both. And Mark recognized it. Not from battlefields, but from hospital rooms and lonely nights. In that moment, he knew, she didn't just need a ride. She needed a place to land. After dinner, Mark led Emma down the hallway to a small room at the back of the house. He paused at the doorway, his hand resting lightly on the frame. "It's not much," he said quietly, "but it's warm, and it's yours if you need it." Emma stepped inside. The room was simple, a neatly made bed, soft lighting, and a shelf lined with a few books and framed photos. It smelled faintly of lavender. She ran her hand along the edge of the desk, noticing a small vase with dried flowers. This was her space, Mark said, answering the question Emma hadn't asked. "My wife. She used to write here." Emma turned to face him. "I don't want to." Mark shook his head gently. "She'd want you to be here. She always had a soft spot for people who carried too much and never complained about it." Emma swallowed hard, the weight of those words landing deeper than she expected. There was a quiet in the room that didn't feel empty, it felt sacred. Safe. She lowered her duffel bag to the floor and sat on the edge of the bed. For the first time in months, her shoulders dropped, the tension slowly unraveling from her spine. Mark stepped back toward the hall. "Clean towels are in the bathroom. And if you want to talk, or not talk, either is fine." Emma looked around once more, then whispered, "Thank you. Not for the room. Not just for the meal. But for seeing her when she hadn't even realized how invisible she'd felt." Morning sunlight streamed through the half-open curtains, casting a golden glow across the room. For the first time in weeks, Emma had slept soundly. No bunk, no distant sirens, no need to keep one eye open. Just quiet. Just warmth. In the kitchen, the smell of coffee and toast drifted through the air. Mark stood at the stove flipping pancakes while his daughter sat at the counter, swinging her feet and humming a tune. When Emma walked in, dressed in a simple t-shirt and jeans, the little girl lit up. "Auntie Emma," she squealed. "We're making smiley pancakes. Want one?" Emma blinked at the nickname, then smiled, really smiled, the kind that reached her eyes. "I'd love one." Mark handed her a cup of coffee and nodded toward a chair. "We don't usually have guests, but you make it feel like we've done this 100 times. Emma laughed softly. "You make it feel easy." They ate together, stories flowing more freely now, about cartoons, about Emma's goofy training mishaps, about how Mark had once burnt an entire Thanksgiving dinner. The house felt different. Brighter. Whole. After breakfast, as Mark rinsed dishes and Emma helped dry, she paused and looked at him. "You didn't have to stop last night. You didn't even know me." Mark shrugged gently. "Sometimes, you just know when someone needs to be reminded they're not alone." Emma nodded, emotion catching in her throat. She'd expected a bus ride, maybe a lonely motel. Instead, she found something far greater, a place to belong. A family, even if just for a while. And that morning, over pancakes and laughter, something broken inside her quietly began to heal.